What's up, everybody? I'm Jesse from Plant the Spear. I'm extremely excited to bring you guys this episode. I am grateful to be joined by probably one of the most recognizable, the best linebacker to ever play at Florida State, one of the, without a doubt, Mount Rushmore members of Florida State throughout history, Marvin Shade Tree Jones, as well as Mike Underwood from Micconope 1851. We're here to talk about Florida State football, the new Laser Center project they have going on, as well as some NIL things that is really exciting. So, guys, I appreciate you being on, and good morning. Thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me. Absolutely.
So, I think the first thing I want to start with, obviously, Florida State's off to a great start this season. 2-0, got Boston College on the docket this weekend. Hopefully, weather aside, we'll get to play that game when and where it's supposed to be played. But so far, it's been a great season. Number 3 in the AP poll. We got championship aspirations this year. I just want to get some of you guys' thoughts on how this team's looking this year. What do you think their ceiling can be? And just kind of some of your general thoughts on the 2023 FSU and how we're looking out on the field. Marvin, I'll start with you and let you kind of give some thoughts on this team.
Well, I think this team has, one of the greatest things is that they have a lot of players come back from this past season that, come off of a 10-win season. So a lot of the guys, or the core of these guys on this team, are used to winning and know how to win. I think that's the big thing. The biggest thing a lot of times is just not falling for some of these trap games. I mean, you look a couple of weeks ago, teams that we got coming besides Boston College. Obviously, we still got to play teams like Clemson. We still got to play Duke. And Duke is no rollover team. They've shown that they have some guys on the team and they can win a game also. So and they're hyped. So those are the type of things that we just have to be very consistent at. And number one, guys just got to stay healthy. That's always the number one thing, is just staying healthy. But other than that, I think if we stay healthy, I don't think if we play the way we're capable of playing, I don't think there's a team on our schedule that can beat us, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying there. Me and Mike were talking about a little bit pre-show about health is really key for this team, but I think you do bring up a great point. If we see the Florida State that we saw in the second half of the LSU game, I really don't think there's a team out there that they can't at least go into the game and have a 50-50 shot at beating. I mean, and like you said, it's just learning how to win. It's getting that culture built. And, it's really starting to show on the field and in the locker room what they've been able to build here. And like you said, a lot of those players coming back have been a really big key to that. Mike, I'll let you share some thoughts on this team as well and where you see the season kind of going.
Well, obviously, everyone's super excited. I think that's huge, both internally and externally out here as fans. I think we're all pretty proud of what product we've seen thus far. I just really echo the whole health component. Jesse, you and I were talking a little bit before the show about how key that's going to be for the balance of the season. And then I think the other thing that I would look at, I think, for example, this Boston College road trip game is important from the standpoint, not so much from the opponent, but just from, maybe some adversity that comes along with some really crappy weather conditions and things of that nature that really might test them a little bit beyond just a normal, kind of game week preparation, get in the bus, get off the bus, get onto the field and play the game out. So testing and a little trial and tribulation, I think along the way is going to be good, because we'll need it, obviously, as we do advance the way that we all think we're going to. We're going to need that game tested or that battle tested kind of mentality. And I think that's going to be key as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like Marvin said, I think you have a lot of games here that can't fall into the trap. Clemson's already fallen out of the top 25. That's still a really talented team. And you have to go to their place. So you can't just assume that you're going to go in there and beat them because they're having a rough year. That's still a good team. Like you said, Duke's a good team as well. And they've done a really good job at acquiring a lot of top talent. But I think they're still trying to build that depth that you see from programs like Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio States of the world. And they're just trying to get to there. Now, we have a lot of young talent on this team, and that's something that's really excited about, that I'm excited about as well. Now, talking about this program being built up to where it is and honoring the history of this program as well, Marvin, I want to get some of your thoughts on, I know you left just before the championship year, but when you think about it, you guys finished number 2 in 92, and you guys were top 4 in 90 and 91. So, and things have changed now. Like, imagine if we'd had the playoffs back then, 14 straight top 4 finishes, Florida State would probably have a ton of national championships. But I just want to get some of your thoughts on some of the similarities that you see in this program now versus your time at Florida State, because although you weren't on the 93 team, you guys laid the foundation for that championship and for the beginning of the dynasty run.
Well, I think one of the things is that we in our games, I mean, we have talent at all positions. I think we can win in different ways. I think we got a good D line. I think the linebackers have been playing pretty well. Just overall team speed, overall team tenacity. They have leaders in different positions. And the team plays with attitude. That's one of the biggest things I like. I mean, they play with attitude. So, I mean, it's hard to compare because I always think that the teams I were on was just the best, some of the best teams. So I just feel like.
Oh,
Was
yeah,
it there?
I think we lost the connection there, but yeah, but you were saying, I do think you guys were, you guys were the best.
I just think, well, I just look at it this way. I mean, during the time period when I was there, we didn't leave Florida. I mean,
Yeah.
players just didn't. And plus, we brought guys with us. You know what I mean? We came in twos and threes. I mean, I can remember when I would go on my recruiting trips, I went with guys from mine. We would get together, all of us, me, myself, Corey, Sawyer, guys like that. We were like, man, we're all going to Florida State. So, you didn't have a lot of out of state because the three best schools in the top 12 were all in Florida. So I think that's something that, I mean, we've done a really good job with, I think our school has done a really good job capitalizing on the portal. I mean, obviously that's just changed the game. I mean, imagine if we would have had something like that back then. We've been, because, but I look at it this way. I mean, it's easier to find talent now than it was back then. I mean, guys that got the internet. I mean, they got all the things, all the tools necessary to find talent. They don't even have to leave out their offices now to be able to do that. But I like a lot from what I've seen from this team. I think one of the things is I like Mike Norvell. I like the way he handles things. I mean, he has a good rapport with the players. I mean, obviously he's done a great job recruiting. I think the coaching staff overall has done a damn good job. I mean, I like our coaching staff. We got guys with experience. We got guys that can recruit. So, I don't see any reason why this team can't be, like the rest of the teams that have gone on and won a championship. I mean, they're primed for that.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what you're saying, and I think it's good that you've seen the staff really hone in on Florida and Georgia recruiting now. They've really kind of said, okay, we got, Florida's down right now, Miami still kind of indifferent on them. We'll see what they turn out to be. But I think now's a pivotal time for FSU. And with them coming off the 10-win season, a good season this year was what it looks like. They can really kind of build a fence around the state. And like you said, it's just you have a talent-rich state in your backyard, and you have to build around that. The portal is huge. We know Mike Norvell has great success there. And then, like you said, I mean, the world is becoming, in a sense, a smaller place with internet and technology and flights. You can go different places. So it is a lot easier for them to go out and find that talent and bring it in. Mike, I know you've been an FSU fan lifelong for a long time. Tell me some of the similarities, because I like what Marvin said. This team plays with an attitude. They are fast, physical, and aggressive, like some of those Mickey Andrews defenses we're used to back in the day. That's something we've missed. Now, nobody brings it like Marvin did. Nobody brings it quite like Marvin did, like you guys did back in the day. They play hard. They're not really knocking some dudes out. Now, I was going to ask you, Marvin, what did you think about that Tatum Bethune hit on Jaden Daniels in the LSU game as a linebacker that had to just make your heart smile?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, the guys are aggressive, but I'm just gonna tell you like this: we need to start getting out of these polls about who's the hardest hitters. I mean, come on. I did that every game, 2-3 times a game. That was just normal. So, I'll always laugh at that. But I thought, like I said, from that position, that's what you have to have. Yeah. From that position, you have to have those, things. But like I said, the team plays with attitude. I think the guys are all on them. They're, you know what? Bottom line, man, they're having fun.
Yeah.
That dictates a lot. When you're out there having fun, man, like these guys are having fun. They're supporting each other. And that tells you a lot about when somebody makes a big play. They all get excited. and that just lets you know that these guys are all one. You know what I mean? They all got the same goal, commonality. No matter who makes the play, they support their teammates, and I think that's huge. I mean, they support each other.
Yeah, you've definitely seen a team and family atmosphere develop at Florida State. And Mike, what are some of your thoughts on things that you've seen growing up as a Seminole fan, what you saw back in the day during the dynasty years, compared to what you just see on the field now and how they play and how this program's being built?
I think really the keys for me was, and I'll tell on myself age wise a little bit. I sat in Doak Campbell for 0-11 and 1-10 when Daryl Moodger was the coach, and I sat in that erector set of a stadium, and so my appreciation is a little different maybe than a lot of the common fans from the standpoint that that wasn't used not to be this amazing brick structure that it is now. We didn't have LED lights now like we do now flashing around the stadium. We didn't have that. And I think that what's been interesting is a build process, because that's what it was growing up. For me, it was watching, Bowden come in, I think 76, I believe, and then just start this laying the foundation behind what was going to he surrounded himself with amazing coaches. I mean, you can think about them, Marvin probably better than I. Jim Gladden, Mickey Andrews, what was the running backs coach? Sexton. He started building these people that really had pretty good, just drive about them, and it started like really manifesting itself in the play on the field, and then again culminating in that late '80s, early '90s realm where this it culminated in what we thought to be the best teams that had ever been on the field, period. And we had the fall off. Now I'm starting to see the build again. And I think that's a really big similarity because there were a lot of fans that were taking, Florida State for granted in terms of they thought they were going to be it every year. And we had to fall off through a couple of coaching changes, as we all know. We're not going to go down that road. But, seeing Norvell come in and start that build again, I think that's the similarity that I see between really and truly. A good friend of mine, Jacoby McDaniel, played for the Seminoles, and he talked about what he sees in this team today versus how they were building towards the national championship in 13. So, I mean, that's encouraging to me to watch that. And I think that's, has kind of been a big component, that build back to the standard that was built. Marvin led the way. Many of those, that old guard really, set that standard. So I think that's the big similarity that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point, because it seems like in society today, it's all what have you done lately, and people really hammer Florida State for the last 4 years before last year, and I'm like, every team has a down period throughout their history. Every team. Florida State was good for 4 decades, and you had 4 resetting kind of years. Things are already headed back in the right direction, but to have 40 years of success, I mean, really, what can you say to that? Like, people just forget about that. I'm like, how can you judge a team off 4 years when they were good for 4 decades? And not only good, but an elite level program, a dynasty in those years. And that was all led by Marvin and all those guys that come in. And that's something I want to ask you about too, because I saw you recently tweeted out a picture where you got to meet up with some of the Doak boys, you and P Dub and William Barnum Floyd and Marvin, Marvin Menace. And what is it that I know Mike Norvell is big on having the players who helped build this dynasty come back around the program. What does it mean for you to be invited around the program like that? Because I think it is important for the guys nowadays when they don the garnet and gold to understand why it's so important, what was built. And it's not just like you're bringing back players who played here before. You're bringing back players who built a dynasty. And it's really important to have that influence and to be able to relay those messages. And so just share some of your thoughts on why it's important for you guys to be back around the program to have that influence on the current generation of Seminoles.
Well, one of the things is that we're the connection to the past. A lot of these guys walk into the more athletic center. And I mean, I got banners up there, there's trophies up there. So, I mean, a lot of times it's good to put the faces with those people when you can really know somebody. I mean, one thing about me, no matter where I've been, whether it's been, Florida State or where I've played in the NFL, I always look up the history and I like to connect with the players from the past. one of the things is, think about it this way. There's players on the team that know who I am. I mean, and you know what? A lot of times when they're going out playing, a lot of time they go, man, we got to do it for the older guys. You know what I mean? We want
Yeah.
to make the older guy proud. But if you don't know anybody, I mean, you
Right.
don't know those guys and know what type of people we are. So I think it's very imperative about that. I think one of the things with Mike Norvell, I mean, since his first day that he took the job, and and the first time I actually sat down and had a meeting with him, I was very encouraged, because all he talked about was about making the fans and making the past players proud of the school again. And I think that's something that is transcended even on the players. I mean, it doesn't matter if I go stand anywhere near that program; those guys are like, waving or like, "What's up?" You know what I mean? Because they
Yeah.
know who I am. I mean, last year I had the opportunity to go on the field, and I think before the Florida game, that last practice, I went out and had an opportunity to talk to the team the night before the game. So, I just think that it's very important to have that type of connection. It does a lot of things. It also shows, that Mike Norvell is that guy, because he's supported by the former guys that have been there, not just any guys. I mean, just some of the guys that were very pivotal in building that program. I think it says a lot about him. And obviously how we feel about Mike, and but I think that it's important that guys go back and show their faces, whether it be on the sideline or whatever it may be. It's like anything. If you're proud of something, you should, show that you're proud of it. So I don't know how many more games I'll be able to get to this year, but I'll make it to one or two more. I mean, at least one more game I'll be at.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Maybe the Miami game, because that one's looking like it's going to be a big one. But
Well,
I
of
think you,
course. Of
yeah, I think
course.
you do bring up a good point, because, like we said, it's not just any players that are coming back around. These are guys that help build a dynasty, the highest level players in the college game that
Mhm.
you're able to gain insights from. I mean, imagine being able to pick the brain of a guy like Marvin Shade Tree Jones when you're a linebacker at Florida State. Like, that has to be really influential for the players, and I'm sure they appreciate you guys being back around as well. Mike, let me get some of your thoughts on what it is why it's important for this program, because I do think it's really huge for a team that is trying to reestablish themselves, but also tying that into the history that Florida State has when it's such a high level of history that they've been able to achieve.
Right. Well, you touched on it. You hit it right on the head. I think that we enjoyed 40 years of success, right? 4 decades. It won't be ever replicated again, I don't believe, in the college game, because of some of the things that have come about with NIL and transfer portal, et cetera. But what I will say is, enjoying the process of building to that makes even having that tie back to the old guard that got us to where that was really the kickoff of that whole 40-year period, or that whole 40-year bowl streak. And what was it, 14 top four finishes in a row?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the stat that blows my mind the most, is that. And to have players come back and talk about not just the ones that were there during the heyday, right? It's the ones that helped build us to be able to even get to the heyday, that's able to share a little bit of that background and history. I'm so passionate. I didn't play the game. I have no thing, but any interaction I have with players from time to time is like going, we just appreciate the effort that you're putting forth, because that consistent effort and drive and was part of the build that got us to made this institution what it is today. And I think that that's what I think is most important about them coming back. I see Mickey Andrews drop by practice, quite often. You see some of that type of thing, and it's really rewarding for us as fans to really sit back and watch that. Especially some of us that have, were there through the lean times as well. I mean, I was a kid at 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, or whatever, and I'd scream just as loud for the Noles when they were getting walloped by Texas Tech as I did when the glory years started coming around. But we have certainly have a different level of appreciation for what Coach Norvell's been able to do, and the consistency that these players are putting out there to get that standard back. So it is important for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that speaks a lot to the culture that they've built and the family atmosphere. When you look at a guy like, say, Jermaine Johnson, who came in from Georgia through the portal, he knew they probably weren't going to compete for a championship, but he wanted to be a part of the team and the program to help get Florida State back. And I think you're seeing that very selfless nature among this team, which is something Marvin touched on earlier. Now, we're in the presence of someone who is an FSU legend and also obviously played for the most legendary coach in FSU history, Mickey Andrews, the most intense defensive coordinator you'll probably ever meet. So I just got to ask you, like, share some of your favorite memories from back in the day playing for those guys, and then how playing for guys like that set the standard at a place like Florida State, because that's something that Mike Norvell talked about a lot this offseason, because everybody threw around the word expectations in the offseason for this team. And Mike Norvell has been wholeheartedly open with saying, look, if you don't want to play at a place with expectations, don't come here, because at Florida State, the standard is the standard, and the standard is the best. It's not 10 wins. It's competing for championships. So from someone who's been under a coach that built a dynasty and helped build that dynasty, and one of the, first round NFL draft pick, just the most decorated linebacker in Florida State history, just speak on some of the things that you saw from them that set the standard that is Florida State nowadays.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the biggest things is just commitment, having everybody buy into the program. I mean, we were able to, I think every guy on our team had one goal, and that was obviously to win. But we took care of each other. We cared about each other. We were close. I mean, we hung out a lot. We spent a lot of time with our teammates. I think that's important, which is something that's different now. I mean, because they live everywhere. Remember, back in our days, we lived together. We spent a ton of time together. But when you talk about the standards, I mean, in those days, I look back and I go, man, I don't see how you made it through practice back then.
Yeah.
I mean, 120 degrees. I mean, remember they have time restraints on practices and things. Now we didn't have that back then. So, I mean,
you guys were lucky to get water back then.
Right. I mean, coach gave them to you. The thing is, I mean, you could be out there 2 hours. If he didn't like the last 10 minutes of practice, he'd call you up and he'd restart practice again and push dinner back. So, there's a lot of things that, that were done back then that obviously you can't do today. But I tell you what, man, I don't see how any other people could work harder than we did back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was intense. I tell people, man, I tell them, you go to Florida State, man. I don't see how you survive. Honestly, I mean, it was just that bad. I mean, the conditioning and gassers. I mean, Mickey Andrews. But the thing of the matter, I think, what made us different is that our coaches were tough. I mean, both sides of the ball. We had we had Brad Scott. Brad Scott was just as bad as Mickey Andrews was on defense.
Yeah.
But the thing of the matter is, but you knew they cared about you. Yeah. Mickey was all, but you know what? He cared. He wanted the best for you. And sometimes he just have that talk with you. I remember him and I used to, we got into a little argument one game, but afterwards he just came up to me and said, I care about you. I just want the best from you. You know what I mean? So, and I think it's just that side when you have a tough program, like when coaches, people say, you have that tough love, but you gotta have the tough, but you also gotta have the love. And
right.
I think that's one of the things. We had those type of relationship with our coaches. I mean, I just saw Mickey, a few days ago. I mean, we still talk about the same stories in practice because our practices were more intense than our games.
I bet.
I mean, you got to imagine the talent we had on both sides of the ball. Just practice alone was, games were easy. That was the easy part. That was the part hard for us. But it was just getting to a 3.5 hour practice. I mean, because it was all banging. It wasn't, we didn't have, we hit. We were full go all the time. And I think that's what prepared us to be the team that was competing. I mean, you look at how the landscape has changed in college football. Man, nobody. These teams up in the Midwest, the East, they didn't want no parts of us. It wasn't even, them wanting to put us on the schedule. I mean, it was that. You think, because my first 2 years we were still independent. So before we joined the ACC in my junior year in '92, but you can see a lot of that now. I just love the stuff that Mike has done, and like I told him from day one, I fully support him because I just felt he had such a good spirit. I mean, he was, you can tell this guy really cares about the not just the one of the best for the players, but the coaches around him believe in him. I mean, they love him. I mean, they really like what he's done, and he cares about the fans. I mean, that's it. In the form of players, he cares about everybody that's associated with his program. It's about making them proud of Florida State again, and so like I said, I mean, we had some rough years. Everybody act like it was the end of the world, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Ugh. So that at least teaches us one thing: don't go back there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point too that, Norvell always says like you're going to come here and it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done is come to Florida State and you're going to work. And I know they're tough on them too. Nothing like back in the day. Like you said, you guys were built different back then. It's not, you got to handle people different nowadays. But I do think you see
Yeah.
where they work. And like you said, the love, it's tough love, but it comes from a place of love. And you can tell they have a family atmosphere and they do care about each other now. And I mean, I can just imagine Mickey tearing into you during a practice. But like you said, you knew it was out of a place where they just wanted you to be better. But sometimes they had to give you that tough motivation. But I think it's great when you talk about the practice and how it made games easy because with just a loaded roster that Florida State had back in the day with all the greats that were on that team. Like you said, when you go into a game, it's a lot easier. And I think that's something that we're kind of seeing pay off with this team now with the
Yeah.
talent floor elevating. Like, they talked about back in the day, sometimes it was hard to run practices because of lack of depth. And now I think you're kind of seeing that. They have a lot of talented young guys on this roster. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think it is important for them to pay homage to the history that is this program and to involve the fans and involve the former players. And I think that helps in recruiting too. You have a lot of guys that I know that as we move farther away from that generation, as people get younger, but thank goodness for YouTube and things like that, where you can go relive those moments. But it is really that your generation that built this program into what it was. And I think you can never lose touch of that. And while other people might try and pick us apart for a few years, we know that this program was like you said, you didn't want to put them on the schedule. And what I loved about Bobby Bowden was it was anywhere, anytime, anybody, any place. We're not scared to come play you. And I feel like that was just so influential in building this program up. Now, one more football question before we get into the Laser Center and NIL. And Marvin, this is something that I feel like is unique to you. I grew up in South Georgia. All of my family and friends are Georgia fans. I know Junior plays at Georgia now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but it looks like there's two teams that might be on a collision course towards the end of the year. How you gonna deal with that? And you gonna do like a half and half jersey, or are you just going with the alma mater? Or are you just gonna quietly cheer for Junior while you're in garnet and gold? That's got to be a tough one.
Well, I don't know, man. You must be in my phone messages. Somebody, you must be looking at my phone. But somebody text me at 10:30 this time, 11:30 your time. They go, man, you might end up being one of those people like Ann Bowden that has to get two jerseys cut down the middle and sewn together.
That's funny.
You know what? Put it this way: when it comes to things like that, I'm about great games and the best team just wins. I think, obviously, I gotta, obviously, I'm support my son and everything that he does. But I'm still a little biased.
Right.
But, it's always you want your kids. You want them to have a great game.
Right.
But that would be something. I tell you, I don't even think, man, that's never. Woo, I don't even think last time Florida played Georgia was what, about 62 maybe? I think 1962, I believe. Nobody
Yeah.
That's your next trivia question.
Yeah, I know they played Georgia in the bowl when they had a lot of suspensions, and I think Anquan Bolden even started at quarterback in that game. That was a rough one because, like I said, I'm related to a lot of Georgia fans. All my friends are Georgia fans. So if that game does happen, and we have the series in 27 and 28 coming up, that might be a relationship breaker for a few of them, but it's going to be fun. It is. I wish we played more often.
Well, you might not be. You probably can't even afford the tickets to them.
No, heck no. No, that's going to be a blockbuster matchup. And really, I mean, when you look at Georgia, like he picked a great time to commit because you have a program there that's being really built great by Kirby Smart, which was something that I thought, and this isn't a Georgia podcast, obviously, but when you look at the teams going forward this year, when you kind of look at who could be the one to stop the three-peat, I feel like if Florida State can stay healthy, they have the weapons to, potentially go toe-to-toe with them. But Georgia still, I mean, they're a machine right now.
Well, you got to look at the number one thing I think has sustained teams like Georgia and Alabama. They just have so much depth. Guy
Yeah.
go down, the next guy comes in is just as good.
Yeah.
So we have to get. I think I like the way where our defensive line rotates. I think we have a good rotation with that. So I mean that's obviously really important. But I think one of the things that has set Florida State apart and will continue is just the wide receiver. I don't think teams cornerbacks are going to match up well with our wide receiver core. I mean, these guys are big and they're fast, they're strong, and they're confident. They want the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They want the ball, and it's hard when you have guys that size because as a defensive back, anything you do is going to be pass interference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When these guys are so big, so and they want the ball. I mean, we haven't had that in a little bit of time.
A long time.
At that position. I mean, I don't know. That's another great trivia question. When was the last first round draft choice at wide receiver?
It's been a long time. And I was going to say something too about talking about the team this year that's really impressed me has been the defense, because we've seen the offense kind of get off to some slow starts in the LSU game and then again in Southern Miss last week. They still did, they still put up a lot of points, but the defense has really been something that stood out to me. They've been able to hold teams where, originally maybe we thought earlier in the year that Florida State, they should have no problem scoring 40 points a game, and that may be required in some games. But when the defense has really stepped up this season so far, they really held LSU in check, especially in that second half. They held Southern Miss to under 100 yards in the first half last game, and I think they played well. A lot of that stems from the defensive line. I think we have solid linebackers as well. But like you said, that wide receiver group is just a mismatch. And with a lot of the way the game is slated towards offense now, with the way penalties go and things like that, I mean, I can just imagine having to cover someone who's 6'4" or 6'7" and has an unreal athletic ability.
It's hard, like I said, I think one of the things you mentioned that's very important that will continue to help us win is the team has been a really disciplined team so far. I mean, overall the last two games. I mean, we got when you're playing the opponents that we're playing, especially coming out of LSU and guys like and some of the teams everybody's going to be fired up to play Florida State. The worst, it just doesn't matter. But these guys have to continue to just keep their head on and not do stupid penalties. I mean, if you keep the penalties down, I think with our talent, I mean that's the only thing that's going to me will make our games close is the penalty. If you get into that game, but I think Mike Norville is probably punishing them real good. So I hope he is. So you shouldn't have any of that. But I love this team, man. I think this team is as special as any other teams in the past. I mean, I go back and you go look. Like I tell people, even though those past 4 years were the way they were, but we didn't have guys on any of those teams they never won. They were never on a winning team last 4 years. Not one of those guys. They went through their whole thing so they didn't know how to win.
Yep.
But the thing we got now is you got guys that know how to win. You got Jordan Travis. I love when you have a confident quarterback that's just as confident as anybody else on the team. He's one heck of a player. So as you mentioned, the defense should be good. Look who they're going up against.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the D line is working.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a dominant group, and that's something that really, like I talked about, is you see them play more like now they don't bring the wood like you guys did. They weren't necessarily head hunting like you guys did back in the day, but I do think it's more of a similar style of defense that we're accustomed to seeing at Florida State with the big hits, with the fast, physical, and aggressive. And you bring up a good point where I think a lot of the limiting factor for Florida State this year, outside of any crazy injury or anything like that, is just ourselves, and that's what Mike Norvell always talks about. It's not about them; it's about us. If they play clean, I don't think there's anyone who this team can't beat if they play at the highest level possible.
I don't see it. I don't. I look across college football today. Man, a lot of teams that we thought were playing well, not what they were. I mean, obviously, Alabama's lost. I mean, they've lost that edge, and now there's, talk with Nick Saban retiring at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, now it's who would have thought we're talking about the Buffaloes?
Right. I know. I know. And the thing is, like you said, it's things have really set up nicely this year if you think about it. Now, of course, teams can get better down the stretch, but you have Clemson that looks like they're struggling a little bit. You had an early test against LSU, you won that one. And then you have some other teams that just maybe, Tennessee struggled a little bit last week against a lesser opponent. And then you have like Clemson's fallen out of the top 25. So maybe the path is there for them to do it as long as they can just stay consistent. And Mike, I'll get some of your thoughts on before we transition into the NIL and Laser Center, just some of your kind of final thoughts on this season and what are some of the keys for this team going, potentially reaching the playoffs and national championship?
Yeah, I think I don't want to be a broken record, but I think the health is key. And I think one thing that just you guys just touched on was Alabama's struggles are really relative to a new quarterback in many instances. If you look at that, and we're very fortunate to have Jordan Travis for, my goodness, he's been playing ball now for, I guess this is 6th year if you roll in all of the COVID stuff and that type of thing. Very confident, articulate teammate, just an ultimate teammate too. Every player I've talked to, and I've had the chance to talk to Jordan a few times, and it's just, he's a likable guy, and he cares about his teammates, and he cares about winning, and he's as driven he's kind of just like this silent killer almost. Yeah. Like his competitive edge is much greater than he maybe appears outwardly if you're having a conversation with him. I mean, this guy is he's an assassin. And I think that having that history there, that experience, and then the brotherhood that you hear players talk about all the time really sets this year up to be something pretty special. So
yeah, he's definitely a humble guy, and he doesn't get rattled in pressure situations. And even when I had a chance to speak with him at the ACC media event in Charlotte, I asked him about how those big game experiences, LSU last year and things like that, set them up for this year. And the first thing he brought up was that NC State loss and how it affected him, but his team rallied around him. And one thing that I think you brought up, the killer look, the killer instinct, is Mike Norvell this year looks like he's out for blood. I mean, I haven't seen a smile on the sideline this season. And I think that he knows he has the team behind him to really kind of go on a revenge tour. And I think that's why he's not going to let off the gas this year. And I think he's really out to prove a point this season.
Oh, absolutely.
Love it. Love it. The black hoodie. It's the black hoodie this year.
Right? Yeah, that's what everybody said. The black hoodie's for the funeral that he's about to deliver to everybody this year. So I hope it's the case. And one game at a time, you can't look ahead. But I think that one next week is really going to be one that he has circled on the calendar. You've heard a lot of the noise from the outside, and I think while he plays it off, I think he hears all that, and he's one of them that keeps a mental note of how things have went, and I think he's ready to deliver, a little bit of something to the boys up in Clemson. But so now let's transition into the reason that we're here to talk about the new Laser Center and to talk about what you guys are doing in the NIL space. And I absolutely love what you guys are doing because you take a different approach to NIL. And, it's funny. I actually said something on a podcast that I recorded yesterday. When NIL and the transfer portal came out, a lot of people thought this is it. You can write off college football. This is the downfall. This is the end. It's going to turn into an unregulated NFL. But I think it's actually a few years down the road, it's actually really been good for the game. I think you've seen more parity come about with NIL because now you can see not so much the top teams just acquiring all the talent. You have some teams who are able to go out and do things, specifically look at Colorado. That's a great example there. Florida State, that's another great example of what NIL and the portal has been able to do for the game to get them back up to speed. And I also think that it's not just what everybody thinks. It's not just bags of money and flashy cars. You also have things where we saw Dylan Gibbons last year who used the money for great purposes. But you guys also take a different approach to NIL at Micconope 1851, where it's more about the holistic approach to bettering your life as a whole as a player. Because I think when a lot of people think of NIL, sometimes you get caught up in the money aspect of things, but that's a short-term
Mm.
maybe carrot at the end of the stick. And not everybody gets a big payday. Not everybody gets the $1 million things that you hear about with like different players from around the field or around the country. And then you also have, not everybody goes on to play professional sports. That's a very, very slim margin of people who actually get to do that. So the transition from being a student athlete into the professional world can be difficult, I can imagine. And Marvin, you went on to the NFL, but then, just transitioning into non-athletic life where you have to go find other sources of income and things like that. I think this is a huge program that's going to benefit a lot of people into setting them up for not just 4 years of getting a bag, as the kids call it nowadays, but also setting them up for a lifetime of success with these resources. So Mike, I'll let you start off by talking about what the Laser Center is, how this came about, and how you ended up being in a relationship with Marvin to really kick this thing off.
Yeah. So, there's two components. We have Micconope 1851, which is somewhat semi-traditional NIL organization. We're doing some brand deals, some brand activations, some smaller types of deals. Nothing flashy. I mean, we're really more about. We do a lot of need-based NIL deals to where you've got a parent or that doesn't have enough money to get their kid back to camp or something like that. Now we have a vehicle to help that. Those aren't headline grabbing types of NIL deals, but I think Marvin or anybody else that's played the game will tell you that they're super important because these kids don't have a lot. The general consensus is, oh, they're getting a $40,000 a year education. They're getting room and board. They're getting books. They're getting everything. They're getting nutrition. They still have a cell phone bill. They still have to eat when they can't hit the training table because they have to go study. I mean, there's need-based opportunities to get involved with NIL, and I think we've done a really, kind of admirable job in really speaking to those types of needs. And of course, we've done a few national activations too that are a little bit on the larger side, and we'll continue to do that. But really, the vision for Micconope 1851 was to provide a holistic way and to take NIL and use it for the greater good, because we know, I think Florida State has 576 student athletes that many of them work just as hard as the football players do on the practice field or the practice court or the track and field guys. They're out there in that same 110-degree weather that everybody else is, getting prepped for the season. And, to provide value, we know, and I think if you look at it, a $500 Powerade sponsorship deal is a fleeting benefit. It's a needed one. I would never, begrudge anybody taking those types of no player taking those types of deals. But there is a fleeting effect to it, right? It only lasts for that $500. That $500 could be a night out at recess down in College Town. That's what that is. We looked at it as a way, okay, what can we do to provide some value? I did a lot of research and study over the last year with regards to some of the obstacles and challenges that student athletes, elite ones especially, face when they graduate or when they're playing days or through. And, found it was really eye-opening to me. I mean, and it made a perfect sense, though, if you think about it. We have players that have played Pop Warner since they're 4 or 5 years old who suddenly now don't play football anymore, and they lose their sense of self. They don't know their identity. They don't know what they're going to do with themselves. And really, their primary focus throughout school has always been ball. So you get to, okay, you've got that piece of paper, that diploma, maybe, perhaps you have it, perhaps you don't, even after school, after your eligibility's up. But it's that aha moment. Now what? What do we do? They've never really put any focus or emphasis on career pathing, and I think that's what we felt like we could provide big value, not just to the superstars that play for us on Saturdays in Doak Campbell. I mean, it's not that. Is we could really touch track and field, swim, dive. We can touch, softball. All of the teams that are really putting their energies into making this university, one of the top athletic programs in the country. And so. So the Marvin Jones Laser Center, LASER is an acronym for Life After Sports Employment Resource. And so what we put together is a program by which all student athletes, all 576 or whatever are active at that time, have access to career guidance counselors. They're going to have professional resume writing services to help them put out a really good CV when they go into that next world. We're going to talk to them about public speaking. We're going to talk to them about doing some mock interviewing, within the confines of the Laser Center, and have an advocate for them. Really, I mean, to have some faces there, really, getting to know you when you on board with us, as a freshman, and kind of work through with you through your 4 years of school. I think that, your career aspirations, maybe when you're 17, 18, look completely different when you're 20, 21, 22. So watching that evolution and having a resource for them is, a lot of kids don't even know what they want to do. And I think sometimes they don't even have the time to think about what they want to do. They're force fed whatever major they've been asked to take. It might not be the one that they selected. There's a lot of data with respect to, curriculums that are kind of forced upon student athletes in many instances, just because of time constraints or the ease of curriculum, what have you. And that's reality. I'm not saying I'm an advocate for or against it. I'm just saying that's reality. So to have some advocates to come, sorry about that, to have some advocates on your behalf, really, lobby for you when it comes to getting that job, finding that job. And then also the other component to Laser is leveraging our relationship with the Alumni Association to a much greater degree than it's been done to this point in time. So to have a dedicated job and internship portal built into the Laser Center, where the alumni owned and managed businesses across this country can go in and post job listings and post internship opportunities and things of that nature, so that the student athletes have this access to this portal. They can go in and see these opportunities. And I think it's incumbent on all of us. If we want that institution to continue to be as great as it is, I think if we can continue to build this alumni relationship, it kind of even speaks to former players coming back to the university, or in this instance, maybe graduates of Florida State that are running or owning businesses today, giving back to the student athletes, or looking at them as a candidate. I think we're going to build that. I mean, one of the things you talked about, Dylan Gibbons earlier, fine young man. I mean, just an amazing guy. But he told me something that really rattled my cage a little bit. He said, when he signed his national letter of intent to play for Notre Dame, I think he was 17 maybe at the time, perhaps 18, but he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt he had 3 jobs waiting for him when he graduated Notre Dame. I mean, not if he played, not if he started, not if he was All-America, not any of that. He said if he graduated, that golden umbrella at Notre Dame was there waiting on him when he got done. And we are light years away from being in that type of situation. The USC is another one that is very, very, very dialed in, alumni heavy with relationships. And, we just have a lot of opportunity there. And I think that if we build this and provide some of these opportunities and access to these resources for these student athletes, we're going to make a lasting effect on them, right? It's not that fleeting $500 sponsorship deal. It's going to be something that's going to be able to be leaned upon for years and years to come. And hopefully, some of that, some of those obstacles, like not understanding, your sense of self-worth or what your identity is when you get done throughout working through the program, that by the time you get to that 4th year of school, you have a pretty doggone good idea about what you're doing. You got some people that have helped you along the way to try to get there. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And I love that too, because, and this is something that Marvin can attest to as well. Like you said, when you're a Division I athlete, it's a full-time job. And a lot of times you don't have that outside time to go build those life skills like that. And then you also look at, I mean, it is what it is. You just got to call it like it is. But this is a lot of stuff that's not taught in school that, whether you're view it as or not, I think things like resume writing, the things that you guys are going to talk that are going to help people with, are things that we should be preparing our youth for these days now, anyway, but they just don't get it. And so to have something that can prep them, because, a lot of times when you come out of school or even college or whatever, you're kind of wandering the woods for a few years till you find yourself, because like you said, sometimes you don't really have time to think about it as a student athlete. And so to me, this really gets them to hit the ground running with a recipe for success. And, like you said, at a place like Notre Dame where they have that umbrella, Florida State is somewhere, they're a younger school. We know that. So they're still a growing alumni base, but you have a lot of connections, and everybody knows sometimes it's more about who you know than what you know. And you can,
Fact.
it's better to be able to use those resources. And a lot of times as an alumni, you want to help your own, from FSU. And so I think this is a really great thing that you guys are doing. And Marvin, I want to get your thoughts on this project and what it is that drew you into being a partner in this.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, it was exciting. When Mike brought it up to me, because it was something that different. It's something that helps everybody. I think that's one of the most appealing things to it is just when you look at college now, everybody's just football. But when you have something that goes across the board to help everybody, and like Mike said, it's not just to me, it's not just about the bag. I mean, there's students that just really don't have any money.
Yeah.
Just don't. People take it for granted getting home. There's some students that might can't go home on a spring break all the time. So it appeals across the board. It's about helping a real need. I'm not saying that scholarship football players is a real need, but you know what I mean. But athletes are a little catered football a little more than other sports. But I think that it just appeals to everybody. Even to this day, it's no different when as a professional coach myself. I mean, I ask players, send me bios, send me resumes, and when I tell you, man, woo, they are rough.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Rough, and these are 21-year-old, 25-year-old kids that can't put together a basic resume. I mean, so. And my thing is, as a teacher over the years, what I did is I developed a little template that I use for players. So anytime I ask something for a player, I'll just go ahead and send them a little template that they can fill out, and it looks nice and professional. Because if somebody sends you something that's not professional, I don't need to read it.
Right.
Yeah. It's not formatted correctly. The information is there because to me. It's about you taking the time and pride in how you present yourself on a first meeting basis, which is your resume. I mean that's what has to talk for you. And also I looked at the thing that hey, after 11-year career in NFL, guess what? I can't use football as a job.
Yeah.
So but I was fortunate enough as I was playing, I did internships also in the off season. I internshiped at media companies over the years and stuff like that. So I was always able to put a little something on my resume, that I was involved in. But I just think it's important that you have to get back to basics. I think we just got away from that, and so we have to get students back to the basics of. That there's just certain things. I'll say this, and I talk about this a lot to people. There's principles. There's principles in everything you do.
Yeah.
And if you want a job, there's certain principles that hasn't changed in 100 years of how you get a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You interview the first appearance, how you present yourself says a lot about you. The time that you invest in putting together a resume or a cover sheet. Or things like that says a lot about the person applying for the job. And that doesn't change. It never changes. We like to see that, especially business owners. You want to see that somebody took the time. Does this person really care about this job? If you have something now, and people don't realize, a lot of people don't get jobs just because of the way your resumes are written. You can have all the talent in the world, but I don't know you. You don't know me.
Right.
So my resume has to speak.
Yeah.
To that. So I think that's a great idea. And I think, the laser center is something that would be imperative in helping people do that. I think, as well as some other areas, but you got to get back to basics on a lot of this stuff. And, it's like I tell kids all the time. I mean, you can get the bag, but there's still principles to get in the bag. If you work the principles, you get the bag.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And the principles is the basic stuff. And have the skills to be able to do the job, or to be able to show people, put your skills on display, So I think that's important. I think, just having that presence across all sports. So I mean, that's what drew me to it. It appeals to everybody across the board. I think when you look at the aspect from the avenue that other students in the school that, can come maybe work and help out. I mean, I think this is something that's just going to be bigger than what it's, it's gonna get big and gonna catch on in a lot of areas. And I just think it's just gonna appeal once it's really, put out there, and everything is working. It's just gonna appeal to a lot of people across the board. And we'll probably have so many people we have to close, lock the door, and people try to come in and help, because there are a lot of people that believe in this project and what it stands for.
Right. And like you said, I mean, sometimes you may be the best candidate for the job, but you never make it to the interview if you don't have that professional resume and cover letter and going through mock interviews. I mean, I was sweating bullets before this one because I was nervous, let alone something like a career interview. So I do think it's important. And then like Mike talked about, Florida State is not just football now. They have put an emphasis on competing across all sports. So you may have, like you said, someone from track and field who doesn't get that big NIL deal. And in the same breath, talking about NIL, you may have to go meet with a company executive to get some of these deals. And you want to present yourself in a professional manner that they can be someone they can trust with their brand. And that's something that I've always preached on this channel and stuff, is like, you have to keep in mind the brand is your personal brand, and the brand of your company is very important, and you have to protect that, and you want to be as professional as possible. And that's what I love so much about what you guys are doing with this project, is just being able to set those guys up for success in ways that they may not think about, and ladies as well. And I think it is going to take off because, like you said, once you get more people involved, they'll see the impact that it makes, and they'll want to come back and help out as well. And this is just one of the branches of NIL that doesn't necessarily get explored a lot, but I think has more of a lasting impact than just, oh, I got some money for a few years, because that money runs out quick. And, you've been a former student athlete who's had to transition into the professional world. And I think it's good to have those types of people come back so you can be relatable in a situation where it's not like someone who you've been through it. You know what I mean? You've personally been through, and you can speak to the trouble of getting acclimated to regular life after having that full-time job as an athlete. Because I'm sure it's got to be hard.
It's hard. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you do make it to the professional sports, I mean, you have enough money to do some things, open up a business and things like that. But at the same time, I remember there was another, a story we were talking about, even with Warren Dunn. I mean, when he got into business, he went back to school to get his business degree, so he can learn business.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, just because you go in and come into a lot of money doesn't mean business. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think it's imperative that, if you had some idea what the basics are of how to go out and get things done, I think that's what's important. I mean, coming out the 11 years of the NFL, I mean, hey, I went back into business. I opened up businesses and things like that. But I mean, you got to know the principles of it. Again, like I said, I mean, to this day, I have people send resumes and stuff like that, and it's just hard. It's hard, and they're right out of college.
Yeah.
And, so, and I hate to deny people based on that, but I mean, it's like, but I may not give them the job, but I will send a response back to like, hey, listen, this is how this thing needs to be done.
Right.
Or maybe you get the next opportunity, so, but I think that this is, like I said, I think that this is something that's definitely needed. I think that, I mean, hey, they might even make it a course. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they might.
I think they should
take it. You might have to get 3 credit hours to take, the laser center course. You know what I mean? I'm just letting you guys know over at Florida State that's you can look into that.
Yeah, Michael Alford, if you're listening, we need to make this a full-on course, because it is really important. I mean, it is like, you take a lot of, sometimes some, like Mike talked about, some fluff courses in college and things like that. But when it comes to really building life skills like this is something that I think should almost be mandatory. And now, Mike, I know you guys are kind of online right now, but you're looking at opening a center in Tallahassee, close to campus. I believe you're debuting that on November 9th, the weekend of, I believe it's the Miami game.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about, I'll be in town, I might have to swing by and take a look at some things, and maybe we can do a write-up to help you guys promote this, because I really love what you guys are doing with this opportunity. But can you talk a little bit about the center that's going to be coming online later this year and some of the plans going forward with this project?
Yeah. Just to roll back a couple of points that I do want to say, I have had a sit down with Michael Alford, and he is fully supportive of what we're doing. He actually wanted to try to implement something similar to this at the University of Oklahoma before he changed position. So we have that, athletic department and institution support, which was needed because, again, we don't necessarily have those resources in place now internally at Florida State. So using NIL, and this was kind of actually a program that had to be cleared through the NCAA with regard to, compliance. And, we got that green light, probably 9 months ago or so, and, kind of hit the ground running with the program, really start fleshing it out and making it a reality. The other thing I'll say too is, with respect to the laser and programs similar to it, we've had a lot of validation. Validation with a new concept is always important, right? So we got 4 Power 5 schools that want to replicate what we're doing. There's a pretty doggone good endorsement right there that says, hey, we may want to share in some of your curriculum and some of the programs that you're putting into place, and kind of taking a longer play as it relates to NIL. And then lastly, with NIL, I think probably within the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see revenue sharing model of some sort be put into place. And so a conventional NIL collective, if you will, may not look the same in 2 to 3 years as it does today. So if that distribution of revenue is done at the school level or at the booster level, or at the collective level, the collective is not going to operate the same way that it used to when it first was formed, right? So I think, Micconope 1851 built for the long haul, and laser certainly, exemplifies, a better use of NIL long term. So that's it. But yeah, coming up this fall, I mean, we're having an event, kind of a dedication service or ceremony or event for laser, kind of announcing it and putting it out there in front of everyone. Chose the week of the Miami game, obviously, for a lot of reasons. We got the namesake of the organization is to my right here on the screen, my left on the screen for people at home. But, and so that Miami game, that infamous hit, and Marvin, you need to plug that retro gear that I saw like on Instagram before we get out of here. That stuff was really nice. But, the infamous hit, or the famous hit, really, I wouldn't even call it infamous, but, at that Miami game, those are anniversary marks. Be it 2023, you've got 20 years removed from the 93 championship. You've got 10 years removed from the 13 championship. It just seemed to line up really well. But that event's going to be held in there. I wish we really had a lot of details to put out. There's some final pieces. We're in conversations right now with, flagship sponsors, both for the event and for the Laser Center itself. So hopefully there'll be news to come on that very shortly. But yeah, so we're going to have this event. We're going to have former players, current players, because this is an NIL endeavor, right, at the event. People come, probably be some live and silent auction types of stuff, but really more of a kind of a celebration of 93, 13, Marvin and his legacy that he's leaving. He's extending his legacy by lending his name to our efforts here. So really excited about that. We've kind of narrowed it down to 2 potential locations. One of the criteria was to make sure it was walkable for student athletes, right? So not all of them have cars or what have you. And that's very difficult. All of us know the campus very well. So it's not really easy to find a space that's, functional as kind of a office conference type of space that's still accessible to, by foot or bicycle to this place. But we are looking at 2 places we should be open for business on December 1st. But again, the November 9th event is to kind of christen that, give some people some sneak peeks into it and its program, and And yeah, so we're and the other part that I don't think we did touch on is this is a nonprofit. This isn't kind of a traditional NIL. The Marvin Jones Laser Center is a not-for-profit, tax deductible for any donations that come our way with respect to that, which is really kind of cool because again, there are a lot of donors that want that tax deductible benefit of parting with their funds, right? So we now have a legitimate vehicle to do that. I think that the recent IRS regulation or guidance that came out with respect to some of these collectives across the country that came out of the gates as 501c3 nonprofit organizations really have been a deeper dive was taken into it, and they're saying no, that's not the case. And so you're finding some of those 501c3 status is being stripped away from some of the collectives that are out there today. So we never wanted to be in that spot. So we've done our diligence, and we know that Laser is going to be credible, and then my dogs are going to come in now and start going crazy. But yeah, so that's a little bit about that. So
yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, it's great to be a resource that they can walk to, that's local to campus, that everybody can use and share. And anything I can do in the future to help promote this, obviously just reach out to me, because this is an exciting opportunity for you guys and for everybody else as well, to be able to have a place to go and work on these things. And obviously, like you said, with the 93, the 13, and we like some threes now. So hopefully 2023 turns into something special as well. And then, like you said, it's just a perfect weekend to do it against against Miami at home, to celebrate the Marvin's hit, which is obviously, if you haven't seen it, I mean, you just took somebody's soul in that game. So it was amazing to watch. But as we get ready to close up here, guys, I just want to also, like you mentioned, the throwback gear that Marvin has available at Garnet and Gold now. You guys make sure to check that out to support his cause as well, because I know you're going to want to get some hands on that. It looks amazing. And Marvin, I'll give you a second opportunity to tell people what you got going on, where they can get involved, some things maybe they can check out with the gear that you got going on, anywhere they can follow you on social media or something like that.
Well, on social media, you can follow me at Marvin Jones Jets on both Instagram and Twitter. At those, as far as the gear, Garnet and Gold, but we'll figure out a way how to tie all this stuff in so people will be able to get this stuff and be able to get an autograph. So we'll be able to work with Micconope 1851 and get some of that done, and with Mike as we go along. As we get closer to things, I think there's some, a lot of, parity between us and consistency that we can do with some stuff. So there's a lot of great stuff that'll be able to come. It's just, right now it's just, a lot. We're watching football a little bit. So
yeah.
But I think that, overall, I'm happy with everything. I think that, what we're doing is a great thing. At the end of the day, it ain't about me, it's about helping, everybody from this point on that truly, really needs the help. So I'm very grateful for Mike bringing me a part of this and making me a part of this. So
definitely. And I have to say, like Jalen Ramsey said in that infamous video, like, if you're not following Marvin Jones on social media already, what are you doing? I mean, everybody should already know that anyway. But yeah, and that's we're actually I have a giveaway. I've been talking with Mike off air about this recently. I'm doing a giveaway coming up, and we're going to get some Laser Center shirts and stuff involved to kind of help promote this as well. So you guys be on the lookout for that. We're still getting some details. Hopefully next week we'll be breaking some news on that. Got some things we're going to throw in there. But with that being said, Mike, let us tell everybody who's watching how they can get involved with Micconope 1851. I'll throw up a slide here with just some of the information on you guys, and just kind of tell the people how they can get involved in this cause. Like you said, it's a non-for-profit that you can get the tax write-off and things like that. But how can people get involved in this cause?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is to certainly visit the website. It's up here on the screen now. MICCONOPE1851.com. There's a lot of opportunities and things to get there. There's some exclusive video content on the website about halfway through your first page, and I think it's really kind of some compelling stuff that we put together last summer, and it's gives some insight into the student athletes' mindsets. And Obviously on social, Instagram, Micconope 18, Micconope _1851 is our Instagram handle, and just straightforward at Micconope 1851 on Twitter and that's where you go to see probably the most, kind of updated information with respect to what's coming out on a daily and getting involved. We haven't really pleaded to raise a lot of funds from donors because we know that there's a fatigue level there. But with the onset and the advent of laser, anybody that feels so compelled that really wants to take an educational approach for getting involved with NIL can certainly go to our website and or our link tree on our social and go to the Micconope Mentor tab. And, we're accepting donations. It doesn't even matter. We're not requesting. A lot of places have they pre-key an amount for you, thinking that that's what everybody's willing to give. No, I mean, from $1 to whatever, it doesn't matter. But certainly grateful for any of those types of contributions that could come in. Again, the laser gala, if you will, on November 9th is going to be another fantastic way to get involved. It'll be a nice kickoff fundraiser for what we're doing. A great opportunity to meet greats like Marvin himself, along with some others. I've got some people that have committed to me, former players that have committed that are going to come. We'll put those names and stuff out there as teasers here shortly. And we're super excited about it. I think that this is NIL done right in my estimation. And I'm not taking anything away from any other collective, and certainly the ones at Florida State. And I'll even shout out Battle's End and Rising Spear. They've done an amazing job. And I think some of our success in player retention and acquisition has been directly related to their efforts, and I applaud that. And that was not the lane that we embarked down when we got involved with NIL. We felt like we had a niche that we could fill and fill very well, and catch some of those kids that maybe fall through the cracks of that superstar player that was getting all the love with respect to NIL, and take care of them, and then provide this longer lasting resource in laser to really build it. And I think it just is one more tribute to Marvin's legacy. I mean, the guy's got a legacy, right? I mean, this is an extension of that legacy for generations to come. There's no reason that laser will be irrelevant in 5 years from now, or in 10 years, or in 20 years. It's going to be relevant. It may look different in terms of, all the AI, artificial intelligence, job searches and resume writing and all that kind of good stuff, but it may look different, but it's still going to be a need. And, we're super excited, and we feel very, very grateful to be in the space and to provide value to Florida State. It's a university that all three of us on this call today love dearly, and so it's kind of been a labor of love and been super fun doing it.
Yeah, and I love that. And putting his name on it is something that like you said, it'll carry his legacy on for forever. And then you have, obviously a recent inductee into the College Football Hall of Fame, the jersey retirement, being in the FSU Hall of Fame. I mean, you can't pick a bigger, better name to add to this project. And I'm really excited to watch it develop and grow. And I really do appreciate you guys being on today. If you're watching, guys, I will link to everything in the description so you guys can go over there and check that out to make it nice and easy for you. So with that being said, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking about this. And, anything I can do, like I said, to help promote, by all means, just feel free to reach out. And I look forward to watching this team the rest of the year. And hopefully, hopefully it's a really good year. And that also helps promote the cause. When you're good like they are, everybody comes in and it's good for the reach and everything like that. So with that being said, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here, and make sure that you follow Marvin on all his social media channels, as well as Micconope 1851. They have a great cause. Like you said, you hear a lot about the other NIL collectives, and they do great work, but that doesn't mean that there's not a place for this. When this is it's not just a bag. It's like we talked about. It's a lifelong benefit from the NIL, and this is NIL done right, as Mike said. So with that being said, guys, make sure you get involved, support this cause. And again, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming on today.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks for having me on. Plant the Spill, baby. Plant the Spill.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Go Noles.
All right, brother.